That's a raucous crowd out there. Some of them look a little sketchy. Yeah, I'm talking about you. Yeah, there you go. Hey, how you doing, everybody? Welcome. We are live. This is the Atheist Experience from Austin, Texas. I'm at Dillahunty. Joining me this week, Don Baker.
Hey, good to be here.
I apologize if I sound a little bit funny. I've been in bed sick for 5 days because last week I went to Dragon Con, which means, of course, somebody there gave me the con crud. And so, yeah, I've had sniffles and sore throats and fevers and whatever. But damn it, I'm probably not contagious. Sorry if I am.
We'll see you next week.
But I wasn't going to miss a show. I got a couple of announcements to get to, and then we'll get to Don's installment this week in failures.
Yep.
As a reminder, this show is sponsored by the Atheist Community of Austin. It's an actual place and a bunch of people, and we're open 7 days a week from 11 to 9. You can come down. There's stuff going on all the time. Tons of shows. There's meetup groups, a philosophy group on Wednesday nights and other stuff like that. You can find out more information at atheist-community.org. I also know that there are some problems with the website. Please be patient. We are working through all that. In 2 weeks from yesterday will be the ACA's annual Bat Cruise. You can find the information at the link below, and there's a hot link that will get you to where you can actually purchase your tickets. If you have problems purchasing tickets, which some people said, hey, I went to go buy a ticket and I couldn't get it, drop an email to board@atheist-community.org, and somebody will take a look at that and see if we can get you through there. Also, next week on the show, we'll have Gail Jordan from Recovering from Religion down here to visit and talk with us. And so, yeah, it'll be the second Recovering from Religion installment because Daryl Ray was on here not too long ago.
Yeah.
But I love Gail. She's a really good friend of mine, has been just wonderful to me for years. And so I can't wait for her to come down. And today at 6:15, after we go off the air, they're going to be airing a new episode of The Nonprofits. And there'll be dinner stuff for the people who are here.
Right. Do we know what the dinner is?
Hell no.
Okay. We invite folks in the Austin area to come down and have dinner with us. We do take donations to offset the costs.
Yep.
And who's going to be our speaker for the Bat Cruise?
Dave Warnock, who was on the show a couple weeks ago, is coming back down as part of his Dying Out Loud process. And so we'll have that going on at Trinity United in the afternoon. And then out
that's
for the
a free
Bat Cruise.
Lecture, right?
Yep, that's free and available to everybody. The Bat Cruise does have tickets, though. And I don't know how much we've sold because I've been gone with Dragon Con, but
I'm seeing the orders; they're coming through pretty briskly.
I think we're gonna fill up the one boat.
Yep.
I think is what's likely to happen. There was one last thing I was going to announce. Hell, I don't know. Cut me some slack. I've been sick.
It'll come to you.
Yeah,
It'll come to you.
I don't know. I think I announced everything that needed to be announced. What have you got for us?
Today I wanted to talk about the Do No Harm Act, and it's a bit of legislation that is a bill to amend the Religious Freedom Restoration Act of 1993 at the federal level. And the idea is to protect the civil rights and otherwise prevent meaningful harm to third parties and for other purposes. So this
Well, that sounds like a good thing.
Yeah, it's a good thing.
Let's protect civil rights.
So it's a failure in that we need this. Okay. Anyway, so that's the kind of the punchline that we're getting to. The Do No Harm Act was introduced earlier in 2017 legislature, and it was reintroduced in the 2019-2020 congressional session. And it was introduced in response to the Hobby Lobby Supreme Court decision where you started having companies use the Religious Freedom Restoration Act to do harm to, in this case, their employees by taking away their, contraceptives under their medical plans. Going back up a little bit, the Religious Freedom Restoration Act was passed nearly unanimously in 1993, back in the Clinton era, and it was an attempt to mitigate government interference in, at that time, Native American religious rituals involving peyote and those sorts of things. And I think the wording was quite a bit broader than it needed to be. And some parts of the law were struck down by the Supreme Court. And since then, many states have their own RFRA, Religious Freedom Restoration Act, which is a terrible name because we're not restoring something. It's a power grab. Texas has an RFRA law that is very broad and more or less says anytime you want to use your religious beliefs over any sort of law in Texas, you can do so, and I'd like to see some folks challenge that. The Do No Harm Act was created by Representative Joseph P. Kennedy, Bobby Scott, and Kamala Harris, and they have quotes. Joseph Kennedy said, "We cannot be equal or free if our government grants select Americans a license to discriminate against their neighbors under the guise of religious freedom." We all agree with that. By passing the Do No Harm Act, we can reestablish the sacred balance between religious liberty and the personal liberties of those who have too often had their civil rights bargained away. Bobby Scott talks about child labor and abuse cases that have slipped under the RFRA, and Kamala Harris talks about race, gender, sexual orientation, and gender identity, and that there's a potential for discrimination under RFRA. So why is this necessary? Well, the simple reason is because as the majority religion, Christianity, strives to do harm in many cases, and in one case, a federally funded but religious child welfare agency was allowed to place their religious beliefs over the needs of the children and their care. And we think that's a bad thing, because the children should come first, especially if federal money is involved. In another case, a transgender employee was fired because of the religious convictions of the owners of a funeral home. In the Hobby Lobby case, concerned a closely held corporation, religious-based corporation, that was refusing to cover contraceptives for their employees, forcing them to get that on their own. In other cases, we've had attempts to insert a pharmacist's religious convictions in the act of filling prescriptions, and that's very scary. That means that somebody can use religious reason to not fill your prescription or whatever. And of course, this often has to do with either contraceptives or birth control or something like that.
Just 2 weeks ago, I did a debate
on this sort of topic, didn't you?
Yeah, it was how do we deal with the conflict between religious freedoms and LGBT rights? And the video for that, I should have, tomorrow, and it'll be posted up on my channel sometime this week. There were a lot of interesting things that happened during that discussion, including someone in the audience who interrupted a point I was making to correct something before I'd even gotten off and running.
Okay.
And it was funny because I was making an analogy, and she interrupted to correct it, and I was like, if you just bear with me for 30 seconds, you will like what I'm going to say, I promise. And she did, and we got there. It's interesting that this is a failure in the sense that, we set up, I say we, the United States set up special religious protection schemes, essentially. Mm-hmm. And now when they are clearly recognized as going too far, we're having to kind of say, hang on just a second.
Right.
You can have your religion, you just can't fucking beat people over the head with it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. I think Thomas Jefferson had a really good quote on that. The freedom to swing your arms ends at my nose.
Something like that.
So Christians have been happy to do harm in the past. They have traditionally persecuted and killed Jews, slavery, and the justification of slavery of blacks was based on the curse of Ham or the curse of Canaan. There's been a lot of needless suffering of women in childbirth due to Genesis stupidity. There's been a lot of persecution of gays, lesbians, and transgender people because presumably these folks are not part of the Christian breeding program. There's lots of playing games with birth control and manipulating women to bear children they may not want. The anti-gay aversion therapy or conversion therapy is another example of doing harm. So by their fruits you shall know them. They are out to do harm, and they have been doing harm, and if we give them a long leash, that's what they're going to do. My main problem with the Do No Harm Act is that it doesn't go far enough. It only clarifies the federal RFRA. It doesn't impact the state RFRAs, which are still, as I mentioned, in Texas is very broad. It doesn't impact other laws giving religious favor that may be coming down the pike. And it doesn't really advance the interest of seculars. It's all about, religious belief. And we could claim religious belief, and I think maybe we should, for a lot of our
I'll stick with
fact-based beliefs.
I'll stick with letting the Satanists do that.
Okay.
The Satanists are one of the best allies for the separation of religion and government that we're likely to come across, and we don't have to turn atheism into some kind of religion to achieve those goals.
Well, I've said it before that I think beliefs about religion qualify as religious beliefs.
They qualify as your protected status. You know, you have freedom of religion includes the freedom to not have one.
Yeah.
But it puts us in a different category, much the same way that when we had to do the tax-free status for the building and stuff, we had to do it in a different category than churches do.
But if a law is talking about sincerely held religious beliefs, I don't see why we can't play in that arena.
Yeah, and I don't know why a law would ever talk about sincerely held religious beliefs, because I don't know how you could prove that it was a sincerely held religious belief, or why it would matter that it was. Like, it's my sincerely held religious belief that people who believe in the supernatural should not be allowed to vote. And I could make a really good case for that. I won't, because I think it would violate constitutional principles. But it might turn out to be a really good thing.
Right.
And if it's, how could you tell whether or not it is my sincerely held religious belief?
Well, and then there's another problem in that in the Hobby Lobby case, the Supreme Court more or less said, well, any belief you might have might be a religious belief, and it's basically wrote a blank check there.
Yeah.
So it's pretty scary time as far as these power grabs. So in conclusion, if Christians were out doing good, this law would not be necessary, and it is necessary. So please contact your Congress critter and give it a plug. Urge them to expand the protections for seculars and such, and people who might be victims. And the need for this law points out yet another failure of Christianity. Let's take calls.
All right. Well, we got a whole mess of calls on the line right now, ready to go. Michael in Maryland, you're on with Don and Matt.
How you doing?
I'm all right. How are you?
All right.
What do you got for us?
The teaching of Lucifer and who Lucifer really was.
Why would I care? I don't.
The church has taught it wrong for centuries.
Okay, which church has got it wrong, and why would I care? I mean, I don't believe there is a Lucifer, so.
Exactly. My statement exactly. Every church has been teaching it wrong.
Okay, how do you know that?
Because I have the evidence.
Okay, evidence for what?
That the scriptures are wrong, what it's saying.
We don't care about scriptures terribly much.
Okay, well, yeah, I'm happy to let you prove scripture's wrong. I'm just wondering what the point is. But go ahead. What evidence do you have that? I don't even know how to ask the question. Hi, welcome to the show. Let's start over. What's your point?
Okay, here's the point. The word Lucifer is only found one place in the Bible. It's found in Isaiah 14. It's a Latin word found in the English King James Bible, used all throughout the centuries to teach that some erroneous teaching of Satan fallen from heaven, as if there ever was a Satan or a Lucifer in heaven.
You know, Isaiah wasn't originally written in Latin, right?
Exactly. It was written in Aramaic and Hebrew.
It was Hebrew, yeah, but okay. So they translated it and included a word. We're on the same page there.
Yeah, put a Latin word in that King James Bible from the original.
From what original? We don't have any originals. And the King James Bible wasn't written from originals either. The King James Bible was written from the Septuagint and the Masoretic texts, neither of which are original. We don't have any originals.
Exactly. We don't have no original from.
Okay, so how can you possibly say that you know what the originals are when we don't have them?
I'm just talking about the scripture itself, what they have put out through the centuries.
Who's they?
I mean, even if we don't have the originals, or we do have the originals. I mean, the oldest text, I guess, is the Codex, the Dead Sea Scrolls, I believe, right now.
I don't know, but the Dead Sea Scrolls. I mean, you're talking about Old Testament type stuff there, and they're incomplete. But what's the point?
The whole point is that what the church has been teaching has been wrong.
Which church, and how do you know?
All the churches.
Okay, thanks for calling.
Catholic, Baptist.
Okay. I agree that what they're teaching isn't reasonable to accept, but, you know. Have you got the truth or something?
Do you want to hear it?
Do you have it?
We'd rather hear why you think you have the truth
I was
than
getting
what you're pontificating about.
Or you can.
Man, I know you come from a religious background, and you know scriptures, right?
Some of them, yeah.
Now, you probably studied pretty well.
Found my way out, so yeah, I studied pretty well.
Okay. Well, I grew up, and I never wanted to go to church, and I found my life in prison for about 15 years. And it wasn't until I was 38 until I did read this word, which I didn't believe in. And I didn't believe that, God sent it to man, inspired by man, and was written by man, inspired by God. I didn't believe all that nonsense.
Okay. And do you believe it now?
Yeah, I believe in God. I believe there's a God, a creator.
Why?
Well, there is no physical evidence. Nobody has physical evidence. Not one single soul that I've ever talked to ever produced.
Hey, you know that you're
here.
While I think it's probably reasonable to infer that nobody has physical evidence for a God, you do realize that the sample set of people you've talked to is not particularly impressive.
I've talked to atheists. I've talked to Mormons. I've talked to Muslims. I've talked to Hebrews.
Me too. You think you've talked to more people than I have?
Religion out there.
You think you've talked to more people than I have?
I don't know. I've talked to a whole lot of them.
Okay. I doubt you've talked to more people about this than I have, and even my sample size is poor. But what is the... So you've got the truth now and you have a belief. So the question is, what do you believe and why?
What do I believe in?
What do you believe and why?
Oh, well, I thought we were talking about Lucifer.
I don't give a rat's ass about Lucifer. I don't think he's real.
We don't have any skin in that game.
Why wouldn't you call and ask me about Lord Voldemort or somebody like that?
Yeah, it's a fictional story. You can debate stuff like that forever.
But you used to not believe, and now you believe, and I'd just kind of like to know why.
Well, how about this? Since you don't want to talk about Lucifer, let's talk about the Ark of Noah. And
how about this?
Babylonian
Since
story.
I don't want to talk about Lucifer, we'll just go on to another caller. Thank you. So we've got Karen in California. Thanks for waiting. You're on with Don and Matt.
Hello, Karen.
Mom.
Hello?
Karen's a mom. Hey, Karen. Calling all Karens.
Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Hi, you're on the air.
Hello with everybody out there listening.
Yep.
I was just wanting to talk about on God and Jesus, my feelings on it. People said before you can't see him, either one of them, so he must not exist is what everybody's outlook is.
That's not what my outlook is. Whether or not you can see something it isn't relevant to whether or not it exists. There's all kinds of things you can't see with the naked eye that we know exist, and of course some people can't see it all, and yet they're able to have reasonable evidence for something. So what do you believe and why?
What do I believe in what and why?
And why?
Why do you
the
believe
why
it?
is the most important part.
Because I feel in my heart that he exists.
Okay, if I feel in my heart that he doesn't exist, what does that mean?
Then in your outlook of it, he don't exist to your outlook. You have that right, just like I have.
Sure, this isn't about rights. It's about what is right. One of us is right and one of us is not right.
Okay.
How can we tell which one of us is right?
Neither one of us is going to ever really know who's right and who's not.
So if you're
unless something gets proven way long time from now, neither one of us is really going to know who's right.
Why has it got to be a long time from now? But what you just acknowledged is that you don't know and I don't know. And therefore,
I acknowledge my feelings about it, just like you're acknowledging your feelings about it.
I haven't actually acknowledged my feelings. I gave you a hypothetical of what if.
Okay, well, I assume that was your feelings about it.
Well, that's
You
part of a
felt
problem.
wrong about it.
That's part of a problem is you're assuming things. So if according to you, we have no way of determining. Like if you say that God and Jesus are real, and I say they're not, according to you, we have no way of finding out which one of us is correct. Am I correct in summarizing it?
I said unless something later comes down the road.
Okay. Then what is wrong with just saying yes? Why would you say, I said, unless something later down the road? Right now, today, is it your position that we have no way of telling which of us is correct?
I don't know. All I know is what I feel. You have a right to the way you feel, or everybody has a right to the way they feel.
Why not just say you don't know if the God and Jesus exists in the first place? If you're willing to say, I don't know.
I feel that they do. I said I feel that they do.
I don't care. I don't care what you feel. I care what you can show. And you seem to acknowledge that if you believe and I don't, that right now, today, unless something changes, we have no way of finding out which one of us is right. And then as soon as I asked you that, you backpedaled.
Oh, not backpedaling on purpose the way you're making it sound.
Oh, well, I don't
Not intentionally.
Is there a way for us to tell right now whether or not there's a God?
Well, at the moment, I can't think of anything.
Then doesn't that mean?
Obviously, because you're sitting here sounding real stern with me about it all. So obviously, I should have been prepared for this.
Yes, you should have.
Because you're being stern with me.
Yes, you should have. You should have buckled up, Buttercup, because these questions aren't that hard.
You're being too stern and pretty much shitty about it all.
I'm just terrible.
Be like that with women, honestly. You're not.
With women, why would I give you special treatment because of your gender? I'm asking questions about an idea.
Because if you were a respectful person, you wouldn't treat me like that.
Well,
that's why.
Okay. I'm not treating you a certain way. You called this show, and when I asked you the difficult...
You're being overly stern with me and being disrespectful.
I haven't been disrespectful. I asked questions, and you keep interrupting, and I don't give a shit what you think if you keep interrupting me.
What you think, neither, honestly.
All right, bye then.
I know you from Adam.
Correct.
I don't care.
And you don't know shit about Adam either. Anything else you'd like to say?
Neither. It goes both fucking ways.
It does go both fucking ways. Thank you. So now you've acknowledged that you believe something for which you don't have a good reason.
I acknowledge that you're being an asshole to me is what I acknowledge.
I will acknowledge that too. I am being an asshole.
Yeah, exactly.
Anything?
Thank you for acknowledging it.
You're welcome. Anything else? Would you like to acknowledge? Would you like to acknowledge? Would you like to fucking shut up long enough for me to ask a question? Would you like to acknowledge that you believe something for which you don't have a good reason?
You're supposed to be professional.
Oh, were you still? You talked right all through that, right? While I had you on hold.
I said you're supposed to be professional. You're not supposed to be treating me like this. You're not being professional.
Who said I'm supposed to be professional?
With your radio call host thing that you're doing, you're supposed to be professional.
Says
and not
who?
treat people like that.
Says who? All I did was ask you questions, and you got butthurt.
No, you got overly strong with me on stuff.
I asked you questions, and you keep interrupting me. So
I have my 17-year-old son is listening to this, and that's disrespectful to treat me like that with my son listening, or anybody else's kids listening.
I don't care. What did I do that was disrespectful?
Being overly firm with me and having a tone in your voice toward me.
Well, I'm sorry that you're not equipped to deal with the reality, but
the way you're doing.
Okay, I'm sorry that you're not equipped to deal with reality or answer these questions.
Radio show because the way.
Why did you call? Why did you call us?
Because my son wanted me to. That's why.
Ah, really? Put your son on the phone.
Okay. I'll put him on the phone if he wants to get on the phone. Eric, do you want to get on the phone?
Okay. Hello.
Hey, Eric.
I don't care that that I'm listening.
Why did you have your mom call?
Because. Hold on, Mom. I'm talking real quick. Mainly because she was supposed to call last week, but she had to do something, and I wanted her to have a chance to correct what she said last time she called 3 months ago.
Yeah. So, what was it that needed to be corrected?
Basically, she never said what she believed, and she said a bunch of different stuff.
Okay.
Like, for instance, she said she saw a dark matter type thing when she meant she saw a dark shadow, but... Oh, by the way, I am an atheist.
I think I actually took that call.
I think you were there.
Yeah.
I'd have to look again.
Okay.
Okay, let me talk to your mom again.
Okay. They want to talk to you. Well, apparently she has nothing to say to you.
Okay.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
I'm good with that. Justin in New Jersey, you're on with Don and Matt.
Hello, Matt. Hello, Don.
Hey.
Hey, how's it going? I actually heard your first call with the guy with the devil. You guys asked him if he had the truth. I'm claiming to have the truth.
Okay. What do you have the truth about?
About how the universe works.
Wait.
Wow.
But
that's kind of big.
Yeah, I like to go big. Go hard or go home.
And yet you're calling the Atheist Experience and not applying for a Nobel Prize.
No, I know. I don't get too big too fast.
Okay.
But anyway,
pretty sure if I had the truth about how the universe works, I wouldn't even be on the show.
That's right.
Yeah. I actually put it out there on YouTube. P2 How the Universe Works. On YouTube, I explained the whole thing.
Okay.
P2 How the Universe Works. So basically, why I'm calling is because I'm here to prove that the universe has a will, that it wants to do what it's doing.
Okay.
It's a new one on me. Try it out.
Yeah. So my evidence for that is that we find purpose in things. For example,
no.
Purpose to whom?
Purpose is something. Purpose is something that we imbue objects with. It's not like they have a purpose necessarily of their own. It's not like an intrinsic property of the thing.
Oh no, I agree. What I'm saying is, so for example, if an archaeologist is doing some digging, he or she would throw away the rocks and she would keep the pottery. That's because the pottery has a quality to it that we could look at and see that it has purpose.
Well,
so it's a human artifact, right?
It's not a property of a purpose. The reason an archaeologist would keep pottery and not the dirt surrounding it is because we have evidence that pottery is a human creation and dirt isn't. So what they're looking for is evidence in ancestry about what humans did. That's the reason. It's not that the pottery, like you pull it out and it instantly, oh, this has purpose. We recognize that some things were designed by humans because we have evidence that they were designed by humans and no evidence that they occur naturally. Now, if you're going to talk about purpose with the universe having an intrinsic purpose, then every spoonful of dirt that they moved out of the way to get to that pottery also had a purpose.
And they wouldn't be able to tell one from the other.
Yes. Well, I am saying that, but I want to get to that in just one moment. I just want to prove some ground.
You haven't even got off the starting. You haven't even got off the starting blocks because the thing that your example is pointing to is not, hey, we were digging through the dirt and we found something and instantly recognizable as a thing with purpose. What happened is we went looking for human artifacts and found them.
Well, I disagree that you're correct. I think that you're wrong. The reason why I think that is because if we went to the moon and we saw some object, we would know, like some alien technology, we would know that some creature put it there, that some thinking thing did it. So even though we don't have,
that's a really good fantasy scenario, but it's not a fantasy scenario that's directly analogous to what you're talking about. If you're talking about archaeologists going out and digging up pottery, that's not the same thing as stumbling upon an alien device on the moon. I don't know why you decided to jump from here, this is perfectly reasonable, to here's something that's outlandish.
I agree that it's not the same thing. I'm just trying to give like multiple pieces of evidence or multiple.
These aren't evidence. These are one of them.
You're trying to make an analogy.
One of them is an analogy, and the other one is science fiction. So
okay. Well, what I'm saying
let's get to evidence.
No problem. What I'm saying is I'm trying to like convey the idea that if human beings stumbled on something, some piece of material, we would know that something created it. We would know that if we did stumble on a spaceship, if we did stumble on something that wasn't human-made, we would know that something created it. So we also know,
you're wrong.
By looking into nature, that some animal did it. So we could see a spider's web and know that something created it.
You're wrong. Now,
human beings didn't. Okay.
So we recognize things that are designed by holding them in contrast with things that are not designed. And so when all of the evidence when there's no evidence that something occurs naturally, and all of the other evidence points to something that was intentionally designed by an agent, we can recognize that, but we need the evidence for it. It's not like if I stumbled across a square piece of some unknown metal while I was on the moon, I wouldn't know whether or not it was a designed thing or not. I would have to investigate.
Oh, absolutely right. If it were just a piece of metal, but if it was an intricate piece of machinery, then you would know that an agent caused it.
Yeah. So here's the thing: that square piece of metal. How do I know whether or not it's an intricate piece of machinery until I investigate?
Well, yes, no. When you investigate it, then you can see, well, this has obviously been created. What I'm saying is that there are qualities in things where we know that an agent caused it. We know those qualities, and we see it in things all the time.
Only when we can demonstrate the agent that caused it.
Well, I disagree that that's the case.
Well, you're fucking wrong. So if you walk along a creek and you find a whole bunch of sticks and mud damming up the creek, and you look at it, how do you tell whether it was done by a beaver or is the result natural occurrence after a storm?
Well, in that case, you won't be able to tell in that one instance. But there are other instances where we can tell.
I think if you looked for evidence, you could tell.
Where we can't.
Yeah, I think if you...
one example where we can't.
See, you're saying...
And I could give examples.
Oh, my God. Justin, you just took the prime example of investigating for evidence and said, oh, we can't tell. You can tell. Stop, Justin, stop. Mm-hmm. Have you ever seen a beaver dam?
Yes, I have.
So aren't there things about a beaver dam that distinguish it from just a pile of sticks and mud that dammed up a river as a result of a storm?
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah, so investigating is how we would tell whether or not it's a beaver dam or whether it's just sticks and mud, right?
Well, I don't disagree that we should investigate. I absolutely agree that we should investigate all situations.
Right, but what we're looking... Oh, my God. When we investigate that dam, what are we looking for?
For signs that it was a beaver dam, for the differences between
beaver dam. What signs? Yes, what signs are we looking for?
Well, I don't know, like off the top of my head. I don't know much about beaver dams.
Oh.
I might have seen one on a nature show.
Okay. So the types of things
I don't know.
The types of things we're looking for are beaver fur, beaver claws, beaver prints, and an interior place in there, because it's not just beavers don't just dam up a river.
Beaver tooth marks on the sticks, maybe.
Yeah, beavers don't just dam up a river to be a nuisance. That's a home. So, but the point is, the things that we're looking for in order to tell that it's design are things that we have observed in design. It's not like we stumbled across a beaver dam one day and said, oh, look at this. Oh, it must be a beaver dam. We gained the keys for what to look for by observing something being made by beavers.
Yes, I totally agree with you.
Sure.
But what I'm
keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. Keep it in fucking mind when you start moving on to your other claims of design.
Okay, what I'm saying is, yes, we could see signs of the beaver dam and the fur and all these things, and we've seen beavers make dams before, but I disagree with you that unless we have those types of signs, we could never tell that something was designed, unless we've previously seen something cause it. I disagree with that. I do think that there's a time where we can go and see something and understand that it was designed, even though we've never seen something design it or have any evidence. We could look at an instrument and see that this instrument definitely has purpose, so it must have been designed.
No, you're inferring purpose.
Yeah, you might be able to infer purpose for certain things. So what?
Okay, so what I'm saying, infer purpose. That's how archaeologists find the pottery.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not. No, it's not.
Okay, so
what thing are you going to point at that God had a purpose in creating?
Okay,
we're waiting.
For example, a mother's milk. I would say a mother's milk, the purpose of a mother's milk is to feed the baby. Okay? And I think we could infer purpose in that milk just like we could infer purpose in a car or anything else. It is obvious that a mother produces milk to feed her infant, to feed her child. That is blatantly obvious.
It's an adaptation.
You could call it an adaptation. We could call a beaver dam an adaptation.
Correct.
But it still has purpose. No matter how many times you give it,
you're inferring purpose because the milk that's produced could be. What's the purpose of this coffee cup?
I don't have to know the purpose of everything in the universe for the universe.
You don't know what the purpose of a coffee cup is, and yet you can infer.
Well, what I'm saying is the idea that I must know the purpose of everything. I know that there are purpose in things.
When did I say, Justin? When did I say you must know the purpose of everything? When did I say that? When did
And I apologize.
When did I even suggest it remotely?
I apologize. I must have misunderstood. I apologize. The purpose of a coffee cup is to hold things in.
Okay. What if I hit you over the head with it?
Then you used it for another purpose.
Yeah, but that was the purpose at that moment. Purpose is something we imbue items with. What you're talking about, and I wish you would just stop using the word purpose because that's part of what's confusing you. You're talking about recognizing whether something was designed with an intent or not designed.
Mm-hmm. That's its purpose. Its intended purpose. Something was designed with intent. A mother's milk was designed, or the purpose of a mother's milk was to feed her young.
You haven't demonstrated that the milk women produce was designed.
Well, what I'm saying, what we need to know first is that it has a purpose. You talk to any doctor on the planet.
It has a use.
What the purpose of a mother's milk is, and they'll tell you.
It has a use.
Mother's milk is to feed her young.
It has a use, but that doesn't mean it was designed.
Okay, but what I'm saying...
You're trying to sneak in a designer here. Prove that there's a designer.
Okay. The fact that something has a purpose means that something intended to have a purpose.
No, that's fucking wrong. That is absolutely, completely, totally wrong because stop. I can go out and pick up a rock in my front yard and use it as a hammer. That does not mean the rock was intentionally created to be used as a hammer.
No, that means Matt has intent, and Matt could give the rock purpose. Something with intent, like in an example, Matt with intent gave the rock purpose. Matt was the creator of the rock having that purpose. So you just proved my point. Matt the creator.
I wasn't the creator of the rock.
I didn't create the rock, dude.
To have a purpose, yes. You could
I did not create the rock. I created the purpose. You proved my point.
There you go.
Humans imbue things with purpose. There's nothing intrinsic to the object that has purpose.
I already agree with you that there's nothing intrinsic. I already agree with you. What I'm saying is...
Thanks for proving my point. The Rock, by the way, is still the people's champion. Hey, Dwayne. Tasha in Nevada, thanks for waiting. You're on with Don and Matt.
Hi, how are you doing?
Bad, but I'm all right. I've been sick for 5 days. How are you?
Oh, no, that's terrible to hear. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah.
Well, you guys look very pretty today anyways.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. So, anyways, I do believe that I have proved that the Jehovah Witnesses actually hold the correct doctrine.
Really?
And, yes. I don't know if you know much about the Jehovah Witnesses, but...
I know that you guys are going to die if you need a blood transfusion.
I know that you guys have predicted the end of the universe a few times and been wrong every time.
No. See, that's the thing with the 1914. People think that was actually the prediction of the end.
They weren't true Jehovah's Witnesses, right?
Right. Yeah, they were. They thought that was the end. But what it turned out to be was that 1914 was actually the start of the end.
How do you know that?
Well, because the fall of Jerusalem occurred.
It didn't happen in 1914.
No, the fall of Jerusalem happened in 607 BCE.
Okay,
Yeah,
how are we to objectively know that was the end or the beginning of the end?
Well, because the Bible, it predicts in Revelation.
Yeah, well,
you do know that Revelation almost didn't make the final cut for the Bible because people thought it was batshit.
No, well, what's that? I'm sorry?
Because people thought it was batshit crazy. It reads like the ravings of a lunatic, and you can read it and interpret it any way you want. And so when they were putting together the canon, there were plenty of arguments about whether or not Revelation should even be included.
Right. But nevertheless, if you go by the 607 and you take the 2,520 years, it exactly equals up to 1914, which incidentally happened to be the year that World War I broke out.
That strikes me as a post hoc rationalization to me.
Right.
Is there anything written that makes that connection before 1914?
Yes. Jerusalem. The
No. I'm talking about your very train of logic that you just gave us. Presumably, if it was a prediction and everybody in Jehovah's Witness land understood it, then they could have clarified it, written it out, and said, "Hey, this is going to happen at this date and this date and this date," and that would have been very easy for them to do, right?
Right, and that's what they did. They said on 1914, that's when the begin of the end starts, and then.
Well, I believe that they said it was going to be the end of the world.
They said it was the end times, the beginning of it.
It's always the end times, though, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Unfortunately, we're
so it's an unfalsifiable prediction, right? Because it's always the end times.
Right. Well, I mean, that was 1914, but then if you look at what's going on today in Russia, again.
Oh, Magog and Gog and all that? Yeah, okay.
No, Russia, they're banning the Jehovah Witnesses. They're, we're not allowed to go door to door.
Actually, I'll retract that. It's not good. That was me being snarky. I don't want to have governments outlawing religions. I want them to go away on their own because people realize that they're ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, yeah. They all are. They all are. I mean, all the other ones.
Except for all of them except for yours.
All the other ones.
You got some money on that horse, I guess, huh?
Now, well, have either one of you been to a Kingdom Hall? I have to ask that.
Nope.
You have to go to the Kingdom Hall.
Why?
If you go to the Kingdom Hall, you'll feel the spirit.
I felt the spirit in the Southern Baptist Church. Why would I need to feel it in a Kingdom Hall?
It's probably a little different. It's probably a little better.
Okay. Are you done playing now?
No, I'm just saying you got to give everything a try. I gave the Baptist.
No, I don't. I don't need to try heroin to know it's bad for me.
That I agree. I would never try heroin.
Okay, so we don't have to give everything a try. Do I need, this notion of, hey, you got to try everything. No, there are intellectual exercises. There's a reason we have a brain that we can use so that we don't have to try everything. So, for example, I think we should do away with routine infant circumcision. I don't think we need to have everybody try that to know whether or not it's what a God wants or give a shit about whether or not it's what a God wants. Why are we mutilating children?
Yeah, shouldn't be doing that. But we should when it comes to religion. I think we should try them all out.
And how many religions are there? There's 30,000 variants of Christianity in the United States alone. It's gonna just keep me pretty darn busy.
Where do you find the time? And how many of them did you try out before you decided that Jehovah's Witnesses were the right one?
I don't think I tried that many.
I don't think you did.
I bet I tried a good 50 of them.
50?
Wow.
At least. But I mean, great detail.
Did you try maybe learning some epistemology and philosophy to decide how best to determine what's real? Because if I'm going to try a bunch of religions, what method did you use to determine that one is better than the other one?
Well, yeah, that's the thing, too. I mean, if you're going to be on the internet researching stuff, you don't know what could be apostate lies. And
I'm not talking about internet research. You said you tried 50 religions. What methodology did you use to figure out that you got the right one?
Well, you just got to look at the Bible itself, really.
Well, why would we look at the Bible? What about religions that aren't based on the Bible?
Well, those ones aren't true because Satan, basically.
How did you determine that?
Well, because the Bible says so.
Well, but you're beginning with the Bible. Why on earth would you begin with the Bible?
Well, that's true. But okay.
No. Don't just say, well, that's true, and then stumble on. That seems to be pretty damn important.
The Bible, yeah, it is. The Bible is important. I agree.
Well, no. You're not agreeing. It's not the Bible that's important. It was your momentary realization that you had no reason to think the Bible was important. That was the important part.
Well, the Bible outrights everything, though. You got to look at the Bible first.
Why?
Because it's the truth.
How do you know that?
Because of the prophecies. Like I said,
what the hell does a prophecy have to do with whether or not the Bible's true?
The one where Jesus said he was going to come back in the lifetime of his disciples?
The one where Adam and Eve ate from a fruit from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil? The one that says you can enslave the heathens that surround you, the one that advocates for genocide, the one that puts women into second tier or worse with regard to how much their value is or whether or not they can own property, whether they can be listened to. That book? Why would anybody care what that book has to say?
Well, because, that's the book that God gave us.
How do you know that? You can tell me all day long that's the book God gave us, but a Muslim's going to tell me that God gave us the Quran.
And it's newer.
Yeah, but they don't have the same prophecies, I don't think.
You don't think? So have you looked into it?
There's a new religion for you.
So
how about Mormonism?
Well, Mormonism, that's the easiest to disprove. Well, maybe not the easiest. It's pretty easy to disprove.
All right, go ahead. Go ahead, Tasha. Disprove Mormonism if it's so easy.
I think that they found some records in some old bank when they tore it down, in the 60s or the 70s, showing that Joseph Smith was actually convicted.
No. They didn't find old records. You don't have to think they found something in a bank when they tore it down. Joseph Smith was a convicted con man, but that doesn't tell you whether or not Mormonism is true or false.
Well, yeah.
Do you actually give a shit whether or not what you believe is true, or will you just go with whatever you feel?
You got to go with what you feel in your heart, I think. You have to, at the end of the day.
So the answer is no.
So you don't actually care whether it's true. You're just going to go with what you feel. Thanks for calling. I have zero time for that. Ellen in Michigan, thanks for waiting. You're on with Don and Matt.
Hi, Don. Hi, Matt. How are you guys today?
Good. How are you?
Exhausted.
Yeah. I kind of agree with Tasha, your caller that you just hung up with, because, in that you guys look great today.
Oh, thank you so much.
I'm glad to hear you're feeling better.
Poor Matt looks like he's death wormed over if you get up close to him.
You're going to make me rethink everything. And it's a good time to point this out because, first of all, yes, I've been in bed sick for 5 days, and I know that I don't look good. So, but it's weird because in the 14-plus years that I've done the show, I don't remember the last time that the guys on the show received compliments on their looks, and yet the women on the show get it nonstop in an obnoxious sense.
Yeah,
like somebody wrote in recently to say that we needed to not have these mics because it was blocking their view. And I was like,
goodness.
Blocking your view of what? And he tried to double down with like, well, people talk with their hands and I can't always see it. And I'm like, just say fucking cleavage. At least be honest. If you're gonna be shitty to women, you should at least be able to be honest that you're being shitty to women. Anyway, I apologize, Ellen. Thanks for calling. Thank you for saying we look nice.
Totally fine. I totally agree with that. I mean, if they don't have the balls to admit it, maybe I can lend them mine.
Yeah.
There you go.
I wanted to call you because I've been wanting to call you for a few weeks, and I'm having kind of a problem here. I'm an atheist, lifelong. I've been married to the same man for 34 years, and he's Southern Baptist, born-again Christian. Mm-hmm. We don't discuss religion that much because within less than 3 minutes, it will blow up into something else.
Yeah.
Even though we try to say at the beginning, okay, here's something silly like, okay, here's a safe word. If we feel like we're getting a little too frustrated, whatever, we just kind of.
Well, I admire your perseverance.
A little while, and it's been work, I'll tell you. And on the 29th, my mom passed away.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
And he's been nothing. Thank you. He's been nothing but a rock of support. In planning her memorial, I talked to her pastor, and my mom was Christian, and went to her church, and we set up a memorial service. Now, during this time, the pastor's asking me questions about, her favorite scripture, favorite hymns, things like that, where I would want things placed in the church, flowers and the, pictures, things like that. And I said, well, I don't know the protocol. I don't really know how this works. She said something about church, and I said, well, I don't go to church. I'm an atheist, so I really don't know exactly how this goes. But, I want to do this for my mom. And, when you tell somebody that, many times they give you that look like you're from another planet.
Yep.
And she said, I would have never known that about you.
Okay.
And I felt smacked in the face. What am I supposed to look like?
Well,
how
no,
am I supposed
I mean,
to act?
it
You know,
may
I mean,
be
come
that
on.
that all of the people this person knows are believers, and it may be that you've broadened their horizons a little bit. So
It's also good to get that realization in people that you can't tell by looking at somebody what religion they are.
Yeah.
I mean,
So
there are exceptions
Don't take
if they're
that personally.
if they're wearing a cross necklace. They might
Wearing it on their sleeves.
adhere to some
literally.
version of Christianity. It's funny how many of those I'll see in porn. As if people want
Going door to door?
play it
Yeah,
up
yeah.
as if only the godless are watching porn, and yet you'll see porn stars with tattoos of a cross or a cross necklace or crucifix or whatever else.
You're off on a tangent.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's true, though. I have never seen people more interested in other people's sex lives besides the religious and, the GOP, which basically is the same thing. Here's, though, my question really for you is, how can what tools can I use to connect more with my husband so we can have these types of discussions, and including like how it relates to my mom, like during the memorial service, as things were said, like, we'll see her again in heaven, stuff like that. Well, that would have to mean, and I read between the lines, and then I piss myself off by thinking, okay, what she's saying is, you can't see your mom again unless you're saved and go to heaven. And that's how I take what she said. But I'm sure that's not exactly how she was meaning it, but you see what I mean? That's how I take it.
Matt's looking at me because I had a relationship for many years where my partner was religious, and I would suggest that you focus on the values that you share. With my late husband and I, we believed a lot of the same things, even though we were both outraged, for example, at the child molestation in the Catholic Church, even though he was Catholic, right? So we certainly had that much in common, and we might disagree on what to do about it or that sort of thing, but at least we had the same values, and so I'm certain that if you've been in a relationship with a man that you clearly love very much, you have a lot in common with him as far as values. And I would just suggest focusing on those and stick with those, and don't worry too much about the expression and such. I think that for a lot of folks, religion and their beliefs and such, especially about the afterlife, has to do a lot with fear and maybe wishful thinking that they want to see their family again, these sorts of things. And you can empathize.
It's comforting.
You can empathize with the desire for that, right? Even if you don't think it's realistic, it may be a bit of a childish sort of belief that might actually happen. Yeah. So anyway, I know that when I first sort of started in being an atheist and sort of making that part of my identity, it was kind of a big thing to me, and it was sort of disproportionately important. It was the new toy, and I may have alienated some folks at that time with being a little too strident or whatever. And I would suggest just laying low, taking it easy, and focus on the things you have in common.
When it comes to things like funerals.
I'm sorry, when it comes to things like what?
Like funerals.
Okay.
So first of all, there's not, depending on what your mom's religious views were, I don't know that there is all that much in the, I don't know that there is all that much in the way of protocol for flowers and other stuff like that. But funerals are for the people who are still here.
Ultimately, yeah.
Now, religions portray this in a different way because they kind of make it about the departed and, referring to them in those kinds of words and talking about going on to meet them. For me, it's like if I go to somebody's house and they are going to pray, I stand there respectfully and quietly in their house and let them do whatever they're going to do. And similarly, when I was at my grandmother's funeral a couple of months ago, I just visited with family, and I didn't care about, the religious stuff. But this might be an opportune time for you to talk to your husband, if you haven't already, to talk about what sorts of things you would like at your funeral if you were to die first, what sorts of things he would like at his funeral if he were to die first, so that you guys know that you're going to take the time to be respectful of each other's wishes in that arena. And for me, it's really easy. I don't give a shit what they do with my body when I'm dead. Part it up, piece it out, give whatever is functional or useful to somebody else. And, you know, grind it up, burn it up, toss it out somewhere. I don't care. It will mean nothing to me. But it will mean something to other people. And so if the people who care about me decide to throw a big party or whatever, I'm good with that because I won't be around to complain or notice. But having that conversation, I remember a debate once where somebody had asked, why do we respect the wishes of the dead under an atheist type of mentality? They're not here anymore. And we can't possibly do any harm to them. They're dead under the atheist model. There's no afterlife. The answer is that we respect people's wishes about what to do with their remains because it affects them while they're alive. Because if you live in a society where you know that no matter what you want to happen to your body, it's going to be, you know, pieced out and parted out to the highest bidder or whatever else, that changes the way you live your life and how comfortable you are with your life. But if you get to live your whole life knowing that what you want to happen to your body is almost certainly going to happen, that fundamentally changes the quality of your life while you're living it. So we respect the rights of the departed because they were once alive. And
I would suggest that this might be a great exercise for you and your husband to do, because you're both going to be in a situation of honoring the other's wishes, and those wishes may not be something that you want. Right. And so you actually have to explore what you want and these sorts of things, and sort of promise each other that you're going to do right. And that might be a good bonding experience.
And you dealt with that.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and I know a lot of other people who have as well.
That must have been difficult for you to go through.
Well, yeah, I ended up planning with the help of my late husband's mother a religious funeral, which made me cringe a lot of the time.
Yeah.
but
I was going through that too.
It's the things we do for the people we love.
Yeah, I felt good at the end that it's like that's what he wanted and that's what he got. He got a good send off.
And we, I was lucky enough to make it out there to attend. And once again, I'm not bothered by a religious service for that, because I recognize that these are people I care about and we're respecting their wishes.
Yeah.
And it was...
Right. And like you said, Matt, when, my mom would come over for any type of activity, whether it be reunion, just a weekend dinner, whatever, her and, her husband would come over and they, would want to pray, and they'd want to hold hands and stuff. And fine, go right ahead, because it made her feel good. And she did that quite often. And it didn't bother me because it made her feel good. I did not participate in it. I held her hand.
Yeah.
I did not pray or anything like that. And she knew that I wasn't, because she knew exactly how I felt.
And that's one of the things
comfortable with her doing that, and she was comfortable with me, so...
That's one of the things to point out to people, is that you have to set your own boundaries. Mm-hmm. So when I'm at somebody else's house and they pray, it's their house.
Yep.
If we're at my house, there's not a prayer. However, if my parents come over to my house and they sit down at the table and they want to pray before they eat, I'm not going to say, whoa.
Yeah.
There's no praying in my house. Take your ass out to the driveway to ask for special treatment for your food. But I would never do that.
Right.
But if they tried to lead everybody in my house in prayer, I would stop that. Mm-hmm. It's like, no, you're welcome to pray. You can pray privately.
Yeah, we get a lot of different calls, and holy moly, some people have no boundaries and they get walked all over all the time. It doesn't sound like that's your case.
Yeah. You guys been together for 34 years, and I'm sure you've had lots of these conversations, but if you haven't touched on that one, it might be a good time to do that. And I'm in complete agreement with Don. Focus on the values that you share and the things that you care about. I couldn't do it. I have friends, not just Don, I have other friends who were in relationships with people who are religious. I'm not exactly sure where my boundaries are, but I can't imagine myself being in a serious long-term relationship with somebody whose views on religion are dramatically different from mine, maybe marginally different. But so
it's very difficult.
Yeah, I've been there.
You're doing something right.
But Yeah, and I appreciate the activity you guys were talking about, because it does sound like that would be a very good thing to get us to bond over it and at least get a conversation started. So I really appreciate that. And I just wanted to say that I do really appreciate your show. I
Thank
love
you so
listening
much.
to it. I appreciate your audience. And I just recently in the last month joined a group in the Detroit Atheist Meetup Group, and the first meeting I will be going to will be on the 17th. So
Awesome.
I didn't even know there were groups around here. So
Tell them I said hi, because I think I know several of the people who might be at that group.
Okay.
Oh, great. Okay. Thank you so much, you guys. I really appreciate it.
Good for you for reaching out for community.
Thanks, Alan.
All right. You're doing all the right stuff.
Bye-bye.
All right. We've got...
Got half an hour left. We're going to have dinner soon.
Yeah.
Right?
And I know that they were setting up the barbecue grill, so while I don't know exactly...
I smell something good.
Yeah. Through my stopped-up nose, I'm starting to get the hint of food.
Yeah.
But Doug in Ohio, you're on with Matt and Don.
Yes. All right. Can you hear me okay?
We can. What have you got for us?
Good. Dillahunty, I'm going to have to pay you trademark, because I've been stealing your lines left and right, especially after the Dorian.
Go to patreon.com/atheistdebates and you can donate directly. But
I'm going
all right.
to have to.
Tell me about the story.
I stole another one. I've learned enough to get me out of it. I got to use that one now.
All righty.
But Hurricane Dorian, it's been the worst catastrophe, and, well, it's probably going to supersede Katrina. And some nutbag YouTuber posted something. Well, hurricanes are God's punishment for slavery, and then boom.
I thought they were God's punishment for homosexuality.
Well, that was until Katrina, when the magical protective gay shield steered Katrina around the French Quarter. But I don't understand why God would punish anybody for slavery.
I said, God, have you read Exodus 21?
Yeah.
It describes it, and to say something now look, the first victim of Hurricane Dorian was an 8-year-old little boy.
Yeah, that's
now,
just
what
sad.
the hell did he ever do
Right.
to deserve a terrifying death? And the majority of the Bahamas are Christians. 85% of them are homeless now. How many hundreds are dead? We don't know yet. It'll be weeks, and we'll never really know the true numbers down there.
Yep.
Well, she gave up, and she pulled her YouTube, and she canceled. I was going to call her on her live show last Monday, but she had to cancel it. And I don't think she has nerve enough to try to defend that statement. But they had some, because the hurricanes all originate off the coast of Africa, and because so many black people were thrown overboard during the slave. Well, we had storms.
But God bless the rains down in Africa.
What about cyclones?
Yeah, exactly. Well, the Indian Ocean tsunami. Who's punishable? Is that God?
Right.
And I go to church, and I go to the Pentecostal, the Church of God, the real Bible thumpers, the snake handlers, and I listen to what they say. And
Wait. I don't want to gloss over this. You actually go to a church where they handle snakes?
No, not the real snake handlers, but the Pentecostal, the Church of God.
I got
Holy
you.
Rollers. Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're the ones that they don't hide. The Baptist, the Methodist, they'll speak about it, but in undertones. They don't. But the Church of God, I got to give them credit. They jump out and they criticize homosexuals. They talk about abortion, and they can't backtrack once they say it. And then I can't debate. I've offered every church in my hometown to debate any preacher on any, and nobody's called yet. They don't like. It's kind of like your story where they didn't like it when you.
They have nothing to gain.
Christ.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And your guy's starting to make more points than our guy. They don't like that idea.
Yeah.
But I have to sit and it's all a show. It's mostly old people that are scared of dying, or some poor kids that are getting drugged there, or they can't go to Pizza Hut afterwards. And anybody that can open their eyes can.
Which might be a good thing.
So I'm curious about two things. One is what is your motivation for doing this, and what are you doing when you're there beyond listening?
Nothing, just observing.
Okay.
Because when I get on the Facebook group, now the Facebook group is public. Anybody can comment, and then they can't deny it. Now, I heard what your preacher said. The girls, you go out, you one night of fun, and then you're going to commit murder. And I wanted to stand up and scream, preacher. Not everybody that's ever gotten pregnant wanted to. There's some girls in this congregation that have been molested. I know for a fact. I would never say that in public who they are.
Or coerced or drugged or whatever, right?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
You know, rape, incest, molestation. To have nerve to say that everybody that an abortion is murder. Well, let's talk about the bitter water. And I forget what stupid story that was. Let's sweep some dust up off the floor if you think your wife's cheating on you.
Yeah.
So don't tell me, and what is God's punishment for the Jews out of the Passover? He goes out and kills all the babies, the firstborn in the land.
Right.
So
yeah, but there's a different set of rules for God, clearly.
Oh, yeah. Well, God is, he can change his mind in time, and contradicts himself repeatedly. Everything fails for God. Spoiler alert. There's another line I done stole from Dillahunty.
All right.
Keep
But
stealing.
I love you guys' show. Yeah, I'm trying. But you know what? And if I don't know how you can debate theists without losing your mind, because I get angry too quick.
Well, I'm not dead yet, so I might lose it eventually.
But we do get frustrated sometimes.
That site, whatever the Saiton boot and cake or whatever, I think I would have ended up choking that guy. They would have dragged me off the stage.
See,
that's a good name for him. I like that.
I'm not only not violent, but at no point during that discussion did I even wish violence on Sai. I was pleased that he kept digging a little deeper. There was one point where he suggested, that if he called my wife a whore, I'd want to punch him. And I was like, maybe she is. I wouldn't, if he's right, why would, and she was a whore. Well, first of all, I don't think whore should be a pejorative. And if it's factually true, then he said nothing wrong, so I wouldn't want to punch him. And if she's not, and he said that she was, then I just know that he's a monumental piece of garbage who's not even correct. And all he could come up with was consult me. So why would I want to punch him then? I don't want to punch anybody.
But I don't know. I relate to you guys more. Southern Baptist, I was raised in Florida. My dad was a preacher. My mom drove the church van. I've done the whole. I've never been baptized, though. I could not bring.
Well, there's your problem.
You go. Well, yeah. Maybe I would have got divine, and I would have got the revelation if I'd have just went into the water.
I went in the water. I was baptized.
I couldn't do it.
Twice.
I couldn't do it for something. There was something in the back of my mind saying this. The flood story alone,
I see.
That made you afraid of the water, and you wouldn't get baptized. Is that what the flood story did?
No, I think he didn't want to be party to a fraud.
Yeah.
The insanity wouldn't quit. The talking snake, the talking donkey. We got dragons, unicorns, giants, and how can we keep rationalize this insanity, this ridiculousness, and your freedom of religion? Just like years ago down in Florida, one of the chiefs of the Seminoles or the Miccosukes, Chief Billy or whoever he was, he went out and killed and ate a Florida panther just to be a prick. He said it was part of his religious. That was how. But they took it all the way to the Supreme Court, state of Florida Supreme Court, and they protected endangered animal. And they really couldn't do anything to him because of his freedom of religion shit.
Mm-hmm.
And this guy, on his way down the steps, there was reporters from all over the state. I think somebody from the Miami Herald asked, well, but what did he taste like, just for the hell of it? He said, well, kind of like a cross between a manatee and a bald eagle.
Oh, no.
Just to be a dick, because he made a fortune out of cigarettes and gambling. He had no, I'm a firebrand atheist. I speak out against it every chance I can. I tell them people on their Facebook, you can get away with it at your church. Bring it up to Winn-Dixie or Walmart in the parking lot, and I will call you out on it. They're scaring these, and the preacher, invites all the little kids up to the front, and they sing "Jesus Loves Me, Yes I Know," and I'm counting, and then there's some sweet little kids, and then one of them's going to get sick. Something's going to happen. I know, and it's a terrible thing to think. But what do you tell the other little kids in the group when it does? Becky got cancer. Now, how in the hell do you rationalize that?
Then they have to be told another lie, that sort of thing. Yeah.
He's got the whole world in his hands. But and I got a good friend, Beth, in New York.
Doug, we've got a limited amount of time, and we're gonna move on to some other callers. Yeah. Keep being the sand in their mouths, and maybe you'll get a pearl come out at the end of the day.
All right. I'm going to have to get on the Atheist, throw Matt some money for stealing his lines. All right, y'all.
There you go.
Okay. Thank you for your call, Doug.
Appreciate it.
All right, bye.
All right. We got Mike in Ohio. Thanks for waiting.
Hey, thanks for having me on.
Of course.
Hey, I kind of want to take this back to what you opened up with the was it the Do No Harm Act?
Yes.
Actually, I agree with that. I think that we definitely need to have laws that keep religions separate from the government, and I think we do need to protect children if their parents are against them getting any kind of medication, or they're dying.
Right.
But I think it's a pretty broad brush to just paint the entire church as a negative. I think that
who did that?
at least in the last 20 years, and I know you don't. I just obviously.
So yeah, let me talk about that a little bit. I do tend to point out problems, and if a group of folks are working together to do a particular thing and they're successful at it, I give them credit, and so in the case of how about the conversion therapy for gays, that was definitely a religious idea, and not every Christian wanted to do it, but at the end of the day, there were a lot of folks that were subjected to it, and it was proved to be harmful. And so my question would be, what about the folks that just sat on the sidelines, wearing the team jersey? Are they on that team or not?
I don't think either of us would ever deny. I mean, religious organizations and religious people have done lots and lots and lots and lots and lots and lots of good things throughout history, including forming hospitals and universities and things like that, feeding the homeless and other charitable efforts. The big thing is it's getting harder and harder to find an example of where they're doing something good, where they're not also shitting all over it at the same time. So when you have like Christian adoption organizations, they get special dispensation from the government because they take up a public service of pairing parents or future parents with children that are in need. And so the government doesn't actually have the same responsibility that they once did because the churches have picked up some of this slack. The problem is that those same churches are denying, for example, same-sex couples from being paired with children because it's against their religion. So now they've got essentially kind of a monopoly or a mild monopoly on adoption services, and yet that allows them to inject their religion into the adoption services. The same thing happens at Catholic hospitals where you have to follow, there are procedures that they won't do. There are procedures that they are forced to do. I have a friend who is a social worker who's worked with those hospitals where if a woman goes in and has a miscarriage, not only do they have to deal with the miscarriage and a burial service for the fetus, but sometimes the placental stuff is not displaced at the same time as the miscarriage. So if they come back in a second time to get rid of the rest of the placental matter, that gets a service as well. So not only do they have to go through this entire kind of process twice, but they end up getting charged for 2 funerals. And then you have universities where there's special treatment for some students, there's special treatments for some doctrines and other things. It's like they can't, where are they doing good where they're not also doing less good than they could do if they didn't have to inject their religion into everything? You go down on under I-35 here in Austin. Austin has a massive homeless population, and down under I-35 in the parking lot there, but between 6th and 7th and 8th Street, there are a number of religious organizations that are out there doing what they can. They're giving out food. They're giving out treatment for pedicures and stuff because taking care of your feet is incredibly important, especially if you end up living in the same socks for months at a time. But there's also secular organizations that are out there doing it. And by and large, Atheists Helping the Homeless and Humanism at Work are out there. And one question that they would get quite frequently at the beginning is, which church are you with? Because the homeless have gotten used to expecting, hey, you'll get a sandwich and toothpaste after you listen to this sermon. And some atheists decided, you know what? We can just ditch the entire sermon thing and just give them the damn sandwich and the toothpaste, and we've done better. So it's not like
I said,
Churches and religious people do good
like
stuff.
I said, I agree with the spirit of that bill. And I listen to you enough.
So where's it go too far?
You guys are.
Because Don doesn't think it goes far enough. You think it goes too far, and Don doesn't think it goes far enough. So,
oh no, actually, I don't think the bill goes too far at all. I just meant, I just wanted to
point out the good.
Add to that not all, that I think that
hashtag not all churches
doing a lot of good.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, and like I said, I listened to you enough that I realized you guys don't just bash churches and aren't just bashing Christians. I mean, and I know that with so many of the callers that you get, it would be difficult to not have an aggressive posture against them. But like,
evidently, I'm a disrespectful asshole, according to Karen.
Well, like I myself, my story is somewhat like yours, Matt. I came from. I was really active in the church, and I think, I would call myself a theist more than a Christian at this point. I mean, it's much like you start looking at the Bible and what it really says, and I don't think I just haven't taken that last step you took. I think that I don't know if it's just conditioning or what. There's something that is, and I guess you're leaving open the possibility of there being a God as well.
Sure, just as soon as somebody presents evidence for it. I'm open to anything.
Exactly.
But until there is, I couldn't believe even if I wanted to, because belief's not a choice. You're either convinced or you're not. So what?
Right, I understand that.
What might be keeping you convinced?
I don't think I am convinced. I think there's this part of me that
you just don't want the label.
I wouldn't say that. I mean, I'm not a.
Well, are you convinced? Are you convinced that a God exists?
No, not really. I would say I leave open the possibility, and maybe even the desire that there would be a God. And the only reason I bring any of this up is just I'm not really here to just protect the churches. But there's this church I went to years ago that they had built a new. There's some village in Guatemala that they had no water. Right, their well is broke, and the church raised a bunch of money and they put a new well in for this village. As soon as the new well went in with the added water pressure, blew up the entire distribution system. All the pipes, everything just blew up. And this was mentioned at 8 a.m. on a Sunday morning, and by noon, there's $80,000 in donations
to shore up the rest of the system, huh?
Yeah. So I was just thinking that I know there's secular organizations that can do the same thing, but it's like to have that many people. I saw the church as a very positive thing that day, and then you had this group of people who immediately opened up their hearts and their wallets to take care of a real need.
Why do you think they did that? What was their motivation?
I mean, some people, it may have been because, it's God's calling in their opinion. But I think a lot of people, I think that in general, people like to help other people.
I think you're right.
Obviously, we're very fortunate in this country.
And apart from the fact that they were, all part of a church, what if they were part of a secular community? Those same exact people were part of a secular community center. Do you think they did?
I think you could have probably had the same result.
I do too.
I think with the church, though, is that you have this place where people are meeting, and I think a group of atheists could do the exact same thing.
I think they have. And I think atheists are raising money for people affected by Dorian right now.
And if you could criticize atheists, it may be that we're not nearly as well organized around.
But we also haven't had the de facto protection of a government, which is what religions do with their complete tax-free status without ever having to open their books or demonstrate they're doing anything in the public good. And if a church raises $80,000, you have no way of knowing how much of that $80,000 made it to Guatemala.
That's true.
Because the books don't ever have to be opened. Whereas every other nonprofit organization has to actually show what they're doing in the public interest and have their books open and available to the public. It's a preferential position, and it's one of the reasons why secular organizations and charities are still several steps behind, because we haven't had that privileged position, at least in the United States.
And we may not even want it.
Yeah.
I think we want a level playing field, but we don't necessarily want to be hidden from view like the religions are.
Yeah, there's a community center here. Right. There's people on the other side of that glass right now. There's people in the back room. There's people out prepping the food. Those are the guys that make the show happen back there.
There they are.
Thank you, guys. It's about community. It's not that the religious belief is encouraging people to do good. It can on occasion, and when it does, I think it might be I was going to say I think it might be a bad thing. Because you can get people to do the right thing for really bad reasons. And it's fine if it's, hey, help out this village, okay, or you're going to go to hell. Ooh, well, now I really better do it.
Or you're going to improve your chances of going to hell.
You've done.
Message. It was just.
You've done.
It was just. Hey, there's this.
I know.
Help.
I know. There's. Right. But if the religion is using guilt and shame to get people to do a good thing, I'm not convinced that is as good as getting people to do a good thing because it's good.
No, I agree with that.
And it's hard to tease apart those motivations.
I'm not you guys right now. I'm just listening, so I don't know if it was Matt or Don that made the comment about the organization. I will say I think that's a kind of a downfall for non-religious people that want to help, because I don't think it's as prevalent in our society, places where they can go and have that community, that sense of community, and where they've got the opportunities.
Yep. We're working on it.
We're working on it.
Yep. I doubt there's as many, though. So
I know.
Right.
I'm not disagreeing. Yeah, I'm not disagreeing at all with anything that you guys were saying in the opening comments. I just was calling in to say that I think that the church is doing the negatives of the church probably are not as negative as they were maybe 40 or 50 years ago. Because I don't think that the church, though you made a lot of good points of where the church does have a negative impact. I don't think that society is governed by religion as much as we used to be. I think that
well, you're definitely right there.
Beyond that.
I would agree with you there.
I think that there are secular people that are more willing to speak up when there's an abuse, and that helps. And it may be that the churches are not as strong in power as they used to be, where people would just go because that was the only game in town.
Yeah, 50 years ago, you had basically Madeline
Murray O'Hare
running American Atheists and fighting for the removal of government-led prayer in school and things like that. Now you have
hundreds of
thousands of Madelines and hundreds of organizations. So I probably shouldn't say thousands of Madelines.
She was a unique person.
She was a character who I never met, but I was told by a mutual friend of ours that we would have loved each other and hated each other and argued like cats and dogs and worked towards a common goal. And I kind of like
it was probably a lot more difficult back then to be going against the religious currents in the country.
Right.
It's probably. I don't want to use the word courageous.
We got like 5 minutes left before we're going to get cut off, Mike. I want to try and get to a couple other calls.
I'll let you go, and hopefully you get someone more entertaining than me. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right. Michelle in California. Oh, I just heard myself.
Hello?
Hello, you're on with Don and Matt.
Hi, guys. Thank you so much for taking my call. It's my first time calling, and thank you.
Be careful. I'm a disrespectful asshole.
Sometimes.
That's okay. I don't know what I am. I am going through what I guess is the beginning of a deconversion process. Basically, last summer, I experienced a very traumatic event, very painful. It resulted, so I am 40, and basically what happened was it was the first time I ever experienced like a depression. I ended up getting anxiety. It got so bad that I had a suicide attempt in January.
Oh, no.
And then and then I was diagnosed with PTSD. So through all of this, basically this last year, my so-called faith has crumbled and it's been crazy. And so I just happened to never listen to any atheist stuff before. I've never been a scientific person. I know nothing about science, the world, or evolution, or nothing like that. I've always been a very esoteric, kind of very emotional, hippie, type of girl, and then kind of embraced Christianity in that. And basically, I had this idea as I was going through all of this just insane suffering. This thought came to my mind that if I could truly surrender to God in my heart, that this would all stop, that the pain would stop, that somehow that a true surrender would, even if it didn't completely eradicate it, that somehow it would, that I was somehow adding to the suffering that I was experiencing, all the PTSD symptoms. If I could do that, and therefore it was my own rebellion against God, or my own pride, all of this stuff that was exacerbating what was going in my life. I'm paying for my sins. I'm sure you've heard all of this. And so since I know you're someone who started out as Christian and then is now a very outspoken atheist, I wanted to know if you ever personally wrestled with the concepts of God gives grace to the humble and, won't show anything to the proud. And so basically people who are atheists, and you and me, the only reason why we can't get the revelation of God or whatever is because we're proud and we don't want people telling us what to do.
Yeah.
And then I guess that science is just kind of...
Let me inject a little bit here.
Just not...
One of the things that really creeps me out about Christianity is that it tends to prey on people who are weak and who are downtrodden, and it tends to try to sell those folks a crutch that they don't need. And I think I would just file it all under that rubric, that these are little rationalizations that they do to try to get their hooks into these people. And it's a sound strategy to invest in something that's down because it can only go up. And when it goes up, you can claim the credit. So that's my cynical view of some of the stuff that you just mentioned. But go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, I did a debate, I think at Imagine No Religion 5. It was myself and Chris DiCarlo against two Christian apologists. It's online somewhere, and you can find it. But they made a big mistake. They didn't know it, but they did. They made a big mistake by talking about this idea that God will reveal himself to you if you just ask, and you ask in the right way, with the right heart and the right intention and everything else. Mm-hmm. I lit them up for that, because that to me is one of the most disgusting, despicable, awful things that you can say. Because really, all they were saying is, Matt just never tried hard enough or didn't do it the right way. Otherwise, God would have revealed himself. What they're saying is they are right. They cannot possibly be wrong. There can't be a fault with their theology, and so the fault must be with you. Well, fuck them.
It's a blame the victim mentality.
Because I can't tell you how hard somebody else tried and how sincere they were, but I know what I went through. And when Joe Shit the Ragman comes to me to tell me that he prayed for God to find his car keys, and God found his car keys, and that was all he needed to be secure and comforted in the joy and love of Jesus. Well, good for him, but it doesn't do anything for me or anybody else. And not only did God not find my car keys, I never got an answer. I spent as much time as I could imagine sincerely seeking and honestly studying, and I didn't set out to become an atheist. I set out to become the best example of Christ that I could be. And when I started coming up against questions, what I'd get were platitudes. And when I kept finding out that I wasn't getting an answer, a curious thing happened. I could not believe anymore. And so when people come up, it's like right now in my life, there are people saying things about me that I know for a fact are not true. And people around me also know for a fact these things aren't true. What do I do about that? I know they're wrong. It's not necessarily something I can prove. It's not necessarily something I can demonstrate to anybody else. I can sit there and argue with them till I'm blue in the face, but I don't have to. Because the second they say that about me, I know that they have lost all credibility. I know that they are on the losing end, that they don't have an argument. I know that they are not worth my time and certainly not worth elevating. So these people who are suggesting that you and I just didn't have a humble heart, they're talking out of their ass.
But I guess this is my thing. Like, what if I guess for me, what makes it really hard is, like, I just feel like I really don't. Like, I actually am different because, like, I just truly do feel like I don't want someone telling me what to do. And
that's
so
fine.
I feel like I'm inherently evil for like rebelling like against like authority and stuff. And so that makes me like in this special group of like the reprobate mind, and I just don't even know if I just have to kind of go through a process to like.
Yeah, you don't have to play. You don't have to play that game. I sincerely tried, but I can't prove that to anybody. If instead I hadn't sincerely tried, that's still not my problem. If there's a God who set up a system under which we are supposed to do A, B, and C in order to be aware of his existence and have some sort of relationship with him, and we do A, B, and C, you don't get to say, well, you didn't do A, B, and C the right way. Well, what's the deal here? Is there actual good reason to believe in a God, or is there not? This is an evidence question. And what do they come back with? Well, you have to have a humble heart, and you have to exercise faith, and you have to do all this other stuff. None of those things are sound methods to get to the truth of anything. And if there's a God, God should know that. And a God will know whether or not you were sincere. But if God decides that you weren't sincere and then decides not to reveal himself to you, how can he possibly fault you for not believing something when he did not provide the evidence? And
that's what I was thinking. Like, yep. I was just thinking, like I just said, I was like, God, I was like, I've done the best that I can, and I just don't know what else to do. And everything just kind of fell apart and crumbled. And I just kind of don't even know how to see the world, because I feel like I'm like in this bipolar experience, because I'll find myself saying stuff like, oh, that didn't happen. Well, I guess God didn't mean for it to be, and then I'll stop myself and go, oh, but wait a minute, if I don't believe God anymore, like I can't say that. So I have like this whole worldview of kind of the way that I see things, and it's so weird because then I'm like, holy shit, like I don't even know how to see like. No, you're good. More, yeah. It's crazy.
You don't have to beat yourself up.
That makes sense.
If somebody came up to you and said, I have a check for $1 million, and it's got your name on it, and in order to claim it, all you have to do is sincerely pray to me every day for a month.
I was going to offer you a little bit different advice.
It's an absurd thing.
There is this thing that the Christians have called the serenity prayer. And if you take the religion out of it, it's really an idea that there are some things you can control, and you should think about those and worry about those things and try to improve those things. And there are lots of things that you don't have control over, and you should try to let those things go.
Don't credit that. Don't credit Christianity with that.
Oh, okay, but
that's not.
Well, but the sentiment of the serenity prayer, I think, is a good one, and it might help you in troubled times of, focus on the things that you have control over and that you can do something about, and try not to let the rest of it bother you too much, even if it's going down the tubes.
And you don't owe anybody an explanation for who you are or what you are, why you believe it or anything else. And if they come to you and say, well, you just didn't do it right, okay, thanks. Thanks for your unfounded assertion that you can't possibly demonstrate. I'll move on now and live the rest of my life while all of you keep coming at me every couple of weeks to say, oh, I didn't do it right. Thank you.
Oh my God. So does that mean that I have the freedom to go and be a bad person?
Yes, it means you
And
have the
suffer the
freedom to go
consequences
be a
of
bad
that,
person.
right.
I don't know why you would want to be, and certainly there are consequences. I
don't want to be. I guess it's just weird. I don't know if this makes sense. It's just kind of strange. Just like I said, I'm just at the beginning. I'm like, wow, if I don't have like any kind of religion
as
or
a
any
new
kind of
non-believer
God to answer to, I'm going to go crazy.
As a new non-believer, you're going to have to make a lot of decisions that you didn't have to make before, and you're going to have to think about the rationale behind those things, and it's a bit of a burden. But I think at the end of the day, you're going to be grateful that you went through this experience.
Yeah, and the thing about not having a God to answer to, that's cool and all, but you have an entire planet of people to potentially answer to, just like you always have and just like you always will. That's the important thing, which is why I'm a humanist. Right. But on that note, Michelle, we got to let you go. We're way over time, and coming up in like... Thank you so much. Call us back. In like 10 minutes or so, they're going to air a new episode of The Nonprofits, and food should be close to ready. Thanks to Don. Thanks for all of you for your patience with a disrespectful asshole who's been sick for a week. And to Eric for sending me a text just now that said, don't read this. We'll be back next week with Gail Jordan from Recovering from Religion. There's the folks on the other side of the wall. Again, they get to show themselves as they put up the credits. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.